Welcome to your quiet escape into the world of ancient myths. Here, the timeless stories of Greek, Norse, Egyptian, and Japanese legend unfold. Tales of gods, heroes, creation, and mystery passed down through centuries. Each episode invites you to journey through old worlds and forgotten realms as the night settles in. Get comfortable and let tonight's myth guide you gently into your dreams. Maui and the Sun, the legend of the hero who slowed the day. Long before clocks marked the hours, and before people spoke of minutes and seconds, the world moved to the rhythm of the sky. The sun rose, the sun crossed the heavens, and the sun disappeared again beyond the farthest edge of the ocean. But in those ancient days, something was wrong with the sun. It moved far too quickly. Morning arrived and vanished almost immediately. Farmers barely had time to step into their fields before darkness returned. Fishermen could scarcely cast their nets before the light was gone. The people of the islands hurried through their lives, always chasing a day that slipped away before it could be lived. The elders spoke of it in worried voices. The children wondered why the daylight never seemed to last. High above them, blazing across the sky like a fiery bird, the sun continued its hurried journey. In that time, across the islands of the great Pacific Ocean, there lived a young demigod whose name would be remembered for thousands of years. His name was Maui. Maui was unlike any other hero. He was clever, mischievous, fearless, and sometimes a little too proud of his own brilliance. His strength did not lie only in his muscles, but in his mind, where plans formed like constellations in the night sky. He was also different from his brothers. While they worked quietly and followed the traditions of their people, Maui often questioned the way things were. Why should the world remain the same if it could be made better? Why should problems simply be accepted? Why not challenge them? Maui grew up hearing the complaints of the villagers. "There is never enough daylight," they would say. "We cannot finish our work. The sun runs like a frightened animal across the sky." One evening, as the last thin line of sunlight faded over the horizon, Maui sat beside his mother. His mother was Hina, a wise and patient woman who understood both the ways of the earth and the mysteries of the heavens. She was weaving cloth from strips of bark fiber when Maui spoke. "Mother," he said quietly, "why does the sun move so fast?" Hina paused, her hands stilling over the weaving. "Because that is the path it has always taken," she replied. Maui frowned. "That is not an answer," he said. Hina smiled gently. "No," she admitted, "it is not." Maui looked toward the fading sky. "If the sun moves too quickly," he said, "then someone should stop it." His mother laughed softly. "The sun is not something that can be stopped, my son." But Maui was already thinking. For many nights afterward, he watched the sky carefully. He saw where the sun rose each morning from the far eastern ocean. He watched it climb and race across the heavens, and he watched it disappear each evening in the west. The more he observed, the more convinced he became. The sun was not unstoppable. It was simply unchallenged. One morning, Maui gathered his brothers. They were strong fishermen and skilled builders, men who respected the sea and the traditions of their ancestors. Maui stood before them with excitement blazing in his eyes. "Brothers," he said, "we must capture the sun." His brothers stared at him. For a moment there was silence. Then one of them burst out laughing. "Capture the sun," he said. "Yes," Maui replied calmly. Another brother shook his head. "The sun is a burning god in the sky," he said. "You cannot throw a net around it." Maui raised a hand. "Perhaps not a net," he said, "but a rope might do." His brothers looked at one another with disbelief. But Maui continued, "The sun travels the same path every day. It rises from the same place and runs across the same sky. If we travel to the place where it rises, we can be waiting for it." "And then what?" one brother asked. "Then we slow it down." The brothers began to argue. "It is impossible. It is madness. We will burn to ashes." But Maui did not shout. He spoke quietly, with certainty. "Look around you," he said. "Our people struggle because the day is too short. Our mothers hurry through their work. Our fathers return from the sea with half-filled nets because darkness comes too quickly." He looked at each of them. "If we succeed, the whole world will have more daylight." His brothers fell silent. They knew Maui was reckless, but they also knew that sometimes his wild ideas changed the world. Finally, the eldest brother sighed. "If we do this foolish thing," he said, "we will need ropes stronger than any that exist." Maui grinned. "I have already thought of that." He went to his mother, Hina. "Mother," he said, "teach me how to weave ropes that will never break." Hina looked at him carefully. "You truly mean to challenge the sun?" she said. "Yes." For a long time she said nothing. Then she began to teach him. Together they gathered fibers from sacred flax plants. They twisted and braided them into ropes thicker and stronger than any ever made before. Day after day they worked, their fingers moving steadily as the rope grew longer and stronger. But Maui knew rope alone would not defeat the sun. He needed a weapon. And so he journeyed to the edge of the forest, where ancient trees stood like silent guardians. There he took the jawbone of one of his ancestors, a relic filled with the mana, the spiritual power of generations. From that bone he carved a hook and a club, shaping it with patience and reverence. When he finished, the weapon gleamed with quiet strength. At last the preparations were complete. Maui and his brothers set out on a long journey toward the eastern edge of the world, the place where the sun first climbed into the sky. They traveled for many days, across forests, across valleys, across cliffs where the wind roared like a giant. Finally, they reached a place where the earth dropped sharply toward the endless ocean. "This is where the sun rises," Maui said. His brothers looked at the horizon. Soon they knew the blazing fire of the sun would burst upward from that distant line. Working quickly, they hid themselves among the rocks and arranged the ropes across the path where the sun would climb. The ropes stretched across the horizon like invisible traps. Then they waited. The sky slowly changed. Stars faded. The eastern horizon began to glow with pale light. Maui tightened his grip on the ropes. "Remember," he whispered, "do not let go." The first edge of the sun appeared. It rose quickly, just as it always did, a blazing wheel of fire rushing upward toward the sky. But this time the ropes were waiting. As the sun surged forward, the ropes snapped tight around its blazing rays. The sky exploded with light. The sun struggled violently, pulling against the ropes with enormous force. Maui's brothers cried out as the heat scorched their skin. "Hold!" Maui shouted. The sun roared with fury. Flames lashed outward like wild serpents. The ropes trembled, but they did not break. Slowly, painfully, the sun's movement began to slow. It fought harder. The ropes tightened further. Then Maui stepped forward. With a jawbone weapon in his hand, he struck the sun, not to destroy it, but to tame it. Again and again he struck, shouting commands between each blow. "Slow down." Another strike. "Give the people more time." Another strike. "Let the day be long enough for life." The sun struggled, but Maui would not release it. Finally, exhausted and defeated, the sun spoke. "Enough," it said. Its voice was like fire crackling across the sky. "I will move more slowly. I will give the world longer days." Maui lowered his weapon. "Swear it," he said. "I swear." Maui signaled his brothers. Together they loosened the ropes. The sun rose once more into the sky, but this time it moved slowly. Morning lingered. Midday stretched warm and bright. Evening arrived gently instead of rushing forward. The brothers looked at the sky in amazement. They had done it. When they returned home, the people of the islands noticed the change immediately. Farmers worked calmly in their fields. Fishermen cast their nets without fear of sudden darkness. Children played beneath the sun until their laughter filled the valleys. And whenever someone asked how the days became longer, the elders would smile and tell the story. They would speak of Maui, the clever hero who dared to challenge the sky itself. The trickster, the dreamer, the one who believed that even the sun could be slowed if it meant making the world better. And so even today, when the sun moves slowly across the sky and daylight stretches long and golden, some say it still remembers the ropes of Maui and the hero who once held the sun itself in his hands. The end.